Well, we are just just under 17 hours away from the NBA trade deadline. And man, is it most likely, at least looking that way, coming at the right time. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers postgame show here on a Wednesday alongside my partner. And we're trying to figure everything out together. We're trying to break it all down, trying to see what's going on, and trying to piece it all together. And I think we know, but we need to talk about it for this time here tonight. Derek Bodner, I'm Devon Givens. Kyle Neubeck live from South Philly in just a bit, following his post-game duties down at the arena. Bree producing all of you, and we know you are all ready to jump to 2 o'clock tomorrow for our trade deadline special, live from the Chicken or the Egg in Marlton, New Jersey. We'll be with you from 2 to 4 tomorrow, and we all know where you're all looking, and that's the trade. But we'll get there. We will get there. Derek, while we were both in the arena with Kyle, first half, struggled shooting, but they were hanging in there. The defense was doing enough where Golden State was also struggling, and the Sixers had more field goals in the first half. Golden State had more made three-pointers, yet they were still trailing by only 3 at the break. And as I was leaving, I ran into a couple of really good friends. They're like my family, and they said, this is the part right here where we always find out. With no Joel Embiid, it's the third quarter. Yeah. And Derek, by the time I got to the car, and you called me and said, are we leaving now? Yes. They were already down by double digits. Oh, yeah. That was rough.
No, there was a Sixers employee, not like a front office executive or anything, just a Sixers employee, I'll leave it at that, who asked me at halftime, do you think they're going to pull it out? I said, not a chance. Not a chance. First of all, there's not enough people to score on the Sixers.
Yep.
And Steph is just going to get it going. And Steph didn't really have like an incredible game. It was more like Andrew Wiggins there in the third quarter.
Yep.
But even though the Warriors are a shell of their dynasty self, even though they've really struggled here at times, you just have more people on that side of the court who you trust. And man, watching the Sixers offense right now, even when they were playing well in the first half, a lot of that came down to their defensive effort. A lot of that came down to the Warriors missing shots. Bit of a shout out to Jaden Springer, who again had another real nice defensive performance, especially in the first half. Their offense is always painful to watch. Every second since Joel Embiid got injured, it's been painful to watch. It was painful to watch all night, especially in the second half. And when you have Tyrese Maxey, who, to be fair, didn't really look like himself tonight. He looked like he was still under the weather in terms of the illness. Like Tobias, the previous game, I'm not sure Tyrese would have played this if they had a normal roster right now, but they needed him, so he came out and he tried. But even beyond that, there's just so little help. Like there was the one time it felt like Tyrese Maxey had like a clean look, was he had a drive in the third quarter because he had a closeout to attack. And look, there's going to be a lot of debate, because it feels like every time Tyrese struggles, we have this debate. Mm-hmm. Is he a lead guard? Like, do they need a point guard to take his place, move him off ball? Tyrese just needs some people alongside of him that are going to generate a little bit of space, have a little bit of gravity. That might be gravity as big to play a dribble handoff game with. That might be gravity as a roll man, cutting hard to the basket. That might be gravity as a secondary ball handler, or maybe somebody who has gravity coming off of a screen like a Bogdanovich. There's nobody on the court with any kind of gravity right now. And not only that, but even when Tyrese gives it up, there's nobody on the court to make any kind of decisions. And when there's no decision makers and no gravity, there's nothing for Tyrese Maxey to attack. So it is, like we said in the last show, almost uniquely ill-positioned to try to elevate Tyrese Maxey's game. And it's just when he is struggling, and he's been struggling here the last couple of games, it's just so painful to watch this offense right now.
So as you keep saying that, and you're like, it's painful, it's almost like you just want to rip, you know how they say
if I could have been a blind baskbasketball fan tonight, look, I don't want to be blind, don't get me wrong.
No,
That's an awful life to live. Apologies to anyone who has to go through that. Look, if I could have taped over my eyes for this game, it might have been easier. Yeah. I'm not even sure my analysis would have suffered, because quite frankly, most people who probably watch this show think that I'm blind.
You can hear it from the crowd. Yeah, absolutely. You can hear it from the crowd. But I wanted to ask you this, because you said it's just so painful to watch. The Tyrese Maxey part, we're going to dive into that even more, because it is tough. And as Jay says here, Jay of the Jungle, it's brutal. It is really brutal to watch. But I want to ask you this. Outside of the Maxey piece, what's the toughest to pay attention to? Because as many of our viewers and our friends here in the chat, we watch it and we look at other things out there on the floor. What's the toughest for you to to really focus on, try to see, and know that, man, this is not 76. Understanding that Embiid is out. But we've also seen in the past, while they struggled this season without Embiid, we've seen where they played well in the past. And they have somebody, seemingly, Tyrese Maxey, as we talk about, a guy that we feel can carry him a little bit to pick up a few games. But what's the roughest part of watching them struggle the way that they are right now? Is it something really specific? Is it the ball movement? Is it the fact that they cannot get by a defender one-on-one when you talk about the others outside of Maxey?
Yeah, that's a tough question because there's so much. There's so much that's aggravating right now. I'm the toughest is just like the decision making in terms of trying to attack off the dribble, like Jaden Springer trying to go iso ball, settling for a pull-up jumper. Kelly Oubre ending up with 13 points on 15 shot attempts and 0 field goal attempts, just driving into the paint with no real game plan. It's just, there are so many players on his team who at their best are finishers. And the moment they try to, we saw this even earlier in the season when Embiid would miss time or when Maxey just started missing time. Mm-hmm. But anytime somebody was out of lineup, it always felt like they had just enough to get by. And the moment you removed one cog, everybody was playing outside of their comfort zone. And there's just everyone honest. And even when we bring back, Batum and Melton, everyone on this team is a finisher. There's nobody else outside of Tyrese Maxey who can initiate in any real way. And it's just when they try to, like I mentioned, with Springer, who's going isolation, with Oubre, who's been coming off of DHOs and isolations for the past 2 weeks and struggling the entire time. All of that is just really, and none of them have any idea how to create an open look for anybody else. It's very, very frustrating.
I just saw in the comments where someone just said that Embiid covers up everything. Right there, it was I hear you, but Embiid covered up everything. And we often talk about what he did out there on the floor and the fact that he anchors the defense on the back end. Teams pull him away from the basket because he's such a good rim protector. Even when it seems like he's not really giving enough effort on the defensive end, he can clean up a lot of mistakes and get those blocks, alter shots that will lead to some defensive rebounds, get out in the open floor, get in the offensive situation going the other way. Certainly on the offensive end, when we look at what they do, where all of it really funnels through him and Tyrese Maxey because of the dribble handoff work that they have out there on the perimeter, as you just said, there's so many finishers and not a lot of shot creators. Now, look, we talked about it before where you need some more high IQ guys on the floor. That is Nicholas Batum, certainly DeAnthony Melton out there with his extra ball handling, Marcus Morris being out. Say what you want. It's an extra piece when we're just talking about the depth of this basketball team and their roster. There's so many issues right now that we see. And again, Embiid covers up so much on the offensive end. So when we look at him and we talk about him being the most valuable player, before this injury, we were talking about a lot how the personnel was good enough, where you didn't need to make that splash move, which is a blockbuster that's going to headline any trade that are made by now and 3 o'clock on Thursday. But now we do see that maybe the personnel, and again, we're dealing with some injuries here on the Sixers side where they're missing some key pieces there, especially 2 of their other starters, not named Joel Embiid, that he is that important to what they do. And before we say, well, that's not the recipe for winning, they were winning. They were 29-13 at one point while he was still on the floor. They are now 30-20 on the season. They have dropped to the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference. And as our listener said and shared in the chat, he covered up so much for this basketball team. So while it may not be pleasing to the eyes with how they operate, where the ball sticks with him, but you saw the assist numbers were up for the entire team. The cutting made more sense where there were a lot more backdoor situations there for the basketball team. They were finishing at the rim. They were getting better looks on the perimeter because of the attention that he draws. Now, you look at it the other way, where we still look at Tyrese Maxey and we all believe and know that he is more than deserving of this all-star nod, that he is going to represent this team next week in Indianapolis, next weekend in Indianapolis. So deserving of it. But right now, since the Brooklyn game to the game on Monday and tonight, we have seen him struggle against the length, the extra bodies that are coming at him, the different defenses that they are throwing, blitzing him. We were sitting there in the first half, and the Sixers were coming our way offensively. And there was one play when Maxey got, I think he was at this point 0 for 4.
No.
And it was the left side of the floor, Derek, from where we are. So the left side for where we're sitting, facing the court. And as soon as he got that ball on the left wing, they just sprinted at him to get the basketball out of his hands. He didn't turn it over. But again, their objective was, number one, this is their best basketball player. You can see he's frustrated because he's pressing because he can't get his shot to fall on the interior. He can't get anything to fall from the perimeter with the length that they have on him. And now they're like, cool, we'll just live with whatever else is happening. So if Patrick Beverly, you want to drop to the basket and get a scoop shot and get it going, or Jaden Springer spin move on Steph Curry and finish at the rim, which is cool because he made it, they're going to live with that. Because you know why too, Derek? Because they are, at that point, 1 for 11 from the three-point line. So, hey, we'll take those twos from you guys while we hit a couple of more threes than you on the other end, and then you can't get anything else going. Your star player is visibly frustrated, and it's tough right now to watch it. So, yes, it's obviously it's astute observation that Joel Embiid covered up so many mistakes for this basketball team. And the trade deadline, we'll get to it. And, of course, we have our special tomorrow. But, man, looking at it and trying to figure out how they can maybe get some help, some reinforcements, as we like to say, it's evident that they need that.
I mean, he not only does he cover up, but he puts everyone in their natural role. Like, he creates space. So Kelly's limited to just catch and shoot threes, not trying to shoot threes off of screens or off of, pick and rolls or what have you. I mentioned it before the season last year. Kelly Oubre shot 37% on catch and shoot open threes, 27% when guarded, something of that ilk. He opens up cutting lanes. He opens up space for Maxey off of DHOs, so Maxey's not self-creating every look that he has. He just creates everything. It's like, when you're out and you miss the first couple of months and I've got to step up and sort of like be the host, that's not my natural role. It's not that I can succeed in this role, but at least I have a prayer. Right now, the Sixers and their role players, they don't have a prayer because they're all stepped outside of their role. And it is something where you would like to have, and this is something we talked about even when they were winning, even when Embiid was healthy, you would just like to have one more creator, even if it's not a primary creator, even if it's not somebody like a primary perimeter creator that forces Maxey out of his role, just another option so that when Embiid has a matchup that's tough, or maybe he has a game where he's struggling, or Maxey has a matchup that he can't exploit like he normally can, you have an option to go to. Because when they don't have a third option, you rely so heavily on those two. And it worked for a lot of the season. We didn't know for sure if it would work in the playoffs when the level of competition ramps up. But when you remove that MVP from the equation, all of a sudden everybody's struggling. And there's just, you brought it up, but when teams get the ball out of Tyrese Maxey's hand, there's not one player on the Sixers right now that they're really worried about taking advantage of that. And when you can sell out that aggressively and that consistently, you just need somebody who's capable of stepping up. And not only do the Sixers not have anyone who has stepped up outside of Tobias Harris, who does it once every 4 games, they don't have anyone who's really capable of stepping up. And it's just a very, very tough watch.
It really is. And look, we will say this too. The illness has been running through that locker room.
I don't think Tyrese Maxey was himself today.
No, he was not.
Not just because of the defensive pressure, but because he didn't look like himself physically. Tobias last game did not look like himself either during the game or after the game. That's absolutely a factor. And it colors a little bit of what we are saying, but only a little bit. They also don't necessarily have the talent to do it either.
Yeah, and look, we just wanted to make sure we presented that. We're not giving them any excuse. We're just pointing out a fact that the illness is running through that locker room, running through the bus, the plane, all of that stuff when they were on that road trip. And they haven't gotten away from it. Tyrese Maxey dealing with it right now, and Tobias Harris still overcoming the flu, whatever it was that he had. That's still impacting him the way that he did. So look, by the way, in Utah when he dropped that 28, he was still sick.
Yeah,
and that was a big deal. But definitely a difference when Harris is out there with Maxey, but they're both dealing with illness, so we don't want to ignore that right now. Now, I will tell you this though, because look, if something happens tomorrow, this was the last time you probably see somebody in a Sixer uniform. I don't know who that somebody is. I don't know who those somebodies are that could have been in the Sixer uniform for the final time tonight at the arena. But if you would, should something happen, want to see the new look Sixers hosting the visiting Atlanta squad on Friday, you can get some tickets courtesy of Game Time. Sure, you might want to wait. You don't want to rush out there and get the tickets because you're like, I don't want to see that product again against Atlanta on Friday. I need to see something better. Well, you might get some help. By tomorrow at 3 p.m. And should they do so, last-minute tickets, not a problem for our friends at Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite events, they shouldn't be stressful at all. Game Time is a fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. There's a big concert coming up in the summer that I know a lot of people are going to want to get to. With killer deals on last-minute tickets, you can go to Game Time and their best price guarantee. You can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for all the fun that you'll have. Some of the things that Game Times has on the app, the experience is fantastic. Images of the seat views. You don't want to be obstructed with your view, right? You want to be able to see it. Maybe you want to sit on the front row. Baseline, sideline, whatever it is, Game Time has the deals for you. Flash deals, last-minute tickets, easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. Lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, etc. Get the images of your seat. Once again, it's the fastest growing ticket app in the country for a reason. Just go to your phone, get the image of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect while you arrive. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds, just 2 taps, and you're all set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone so you never have to dig through your email. Maybe you want to get your loved one for Valentine's Day coming up next week. Tickets, they make great gifts, Valentine's gifts for your loved ones for any of those events that we talked about. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code PHLY for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
We also want to make sure we tell you about Rocket Money because we all want to make sure that you get the most out of your money and that you're not wasting money on unnecessary subscriptions. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills. You can see all of your subscriptions in one place, and if you see something you don't want, you can cancel it with a tap, and you never have to get on the phone with customer service. They'll even try to get you a refund for the last couple months of wasted money and negotiate to lower your bills for you by up to 20%. All you have to do is take a picture of your bill, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has helped save its members an average of $720 a year with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/PHLY. That's rocketmoney.com/PHLY. rocketmoney.com/PHLY.
So we want to tell you once again about Thursday at 2 o'clock. Tomorrow, 2 to 4, the chicken or the egg in Marlton, New Jersey. Yep. A big-time blowout trade deadline special, 2 to 4. Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck, Rich Hoffman will be with us. A 4-man team. We're going to field a good team. Yeah. Bree, we make 5. We're going to be all set.
You can be there in person and hassle the Hoff.
Hassle the Hoff. You got to hassle them. So we're going to have everything, not just anything that happens with the 76ers, but also around the NBA because it could impact. And we'll get to the things that were dropped earlier today, some of the moves that may impact the Eastern Conference and maybe even the Sixers and their dealings. But again, tomorrow, the chicken or the egg in Marlton, New Jersey, 2 to 4. Hope to see you there. We'll have some wings together. We'll talk a lot of stuff. We'll get into what's going on around the league, what's going on around this team. How can they fix this whole thing? And if something does not happen, boy, it's going to be rough because Daryl Morey's already getting it in the chat now.
Yeah.
If he doesn't do anything tomorrow, it's going to be rough. So we'll do that with you for 2 hours tomorrow. We're going to have a special, and I look forward to hanging out with the guys and Bree as we put together our five-person group. And we can field a better team right now than Sixers, huh?
At least we got a starting 5, man. We're all healthy. We're all available.
We do have a starting 5. We do have a starting 5, so we'll talk to you about that. How about this? Let's get to a positive. First of all, the Sixers fall 127-104, 30-20 now, folks. Again, they've lost now 7 of their last 8 games. Embiid has been out for the last few. As we know, the last Golden State game, ironically enough, on the road, that's the last game that he played. And as a result, they are now 10 games over 500. They are 5th in the Eastern Conference right now. They had posted, who did they post? 6 players in double figures tonight. No one over 17 And my man Rick, go get him, Rick. Ricky Council, 17 points to lead the Sixers in scoring, 4 for 7 in his 10 minutes of run. And look, man, he got to the free throw line, knocked down, 8 all
In
of his free
garbage
throws.
time, yeah.
In garbage time, by the way. Pat Beverly had 13. Kenyon Martin Jr. showcasing to stay or maybe another team to come get him and get him off the bench. He had 15, 6 of 10 from the floor, 13 for Harris, 12 for Maxey, 5 for 14 from the field, 11 for Kelly Oubre, 5 for 15 from the floor, 1 of 4 from three-point line. Jaden Springer got the start. He finished with 8 points, 3 for 9, 0 for 3 from beyond. But it was really about the defense, and he started off really well against Steph Curry. But just 6 players in double figures. They turned the ball over 14 times tonight. So it wasn't all that bad. But when you're down bad, the way that they are in terms of personnel, you got to protect the basketball a little bit more. And in the third quarter, again, things really got out of hand. They lost that quarter by 20, giving up 43 points to the Warriors. A lot of that, Andrew Wiggins, as you talked about, Jonathan Kuminga early looking really good as he finished with 18, 21 for Wiggins to have a game high tonight. This was the third quarter again continues to be their problem without Embiid. Before it was, this is a bonus with Embiid where we can sit in the fourth. No. Now it's the game is over at the end of the third.
Yeah. It sucked.
It did.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, there's again, I mentioned it at halftime. It just felt like whatever was happening that was short term, they were going to run into a wall offensively, and I didn't trust that they were going to stop the Warriors. I didn't necessarily see, like you mentioned, Wiggins and Kuminga being the driving force to get that. But they got hit on the offensive glass. They turned the ball over. Their defense was atrocious. I thought they got backdoor cut a lot. They couldn't make a shot. They ended up with 8 threes on the night, and quite frankly, a bunch of those came in garbage time. I think they had 5 for most of the game towards the end of the fourth quarter. You don't win an NBA game when you have 5 threes made in meaningful play. They have been shooting like sub 20% pretty much since Embiid from 3, pretty much since Embiid left the lineup. They can't generate threes. They can't make threes when they get them. All of their shots seem like they're either mid-ranges or contested floaters. That's not going to win in 2024. It is, I don't know how many different ways to say it. It's a really tough watch right now. Everyone in the starting lineup frustrated me tonight. And Springer maybe the least so, because at least he gave you dogged one-on-one defense and got through screens. And he had his moments of frustration offensively for sure, but he at least gave you value on that end. Nobody was really good, though.
And even with his frustrations on the offensive end, Derek, like you just said, he dogged effort. It wasn't just on the defensive end. He was trying on the offensive end to do something because they couldn't. And even so, he goes 3 for 9, and you're like, so what? Just because they needed whatever he was shooting, even the 3-pointers, because you mentioned the 3-pointers. I wrote it here. Maxey made his first 3-pointer at the 2:20 mark in the second quarter. That made them 2 for 12.
Yeah,
from 3-point range. And I think they finished like 2 for 15 in the first half.
Yeah.
So to your point, they couldn't generate anything from beyond. While Golden State wasn't burning up the nets in the first half, they at least had a few more made 3-pointers and a 3-point lead. And as Derek mentioned, there was an opportunity for them to go off just because they have much better players opposite the Sixers tonight to go off and beat Philadelphia by 20 in that third quarter.
Yeah. Yeah. I truthfully, I was looking at it today, and I think the Sixers probably only need to find a way to win 14 games the rest of the season to make sure they keep a top 6 seed. And
look, the 6 seed, that's the focus.
Yeah.
You try to stay in the top 6.
If Embiid comes back, let's say late March, he might play realistically 5 to 8 of those games. If you let's say you get 5 wins when Embiid comes back, I don't know how you're getting 9 more wins. You're sitting there, honestly, when they were sitting there close in the first half, you're like, hey, I don't know if this is sustainable, but at the very least, maybe you can scratch one out, get a little positive momentum going, and just everyone, you're just trying to check off one of those 14 or so wins that you need. And this seemed like an opportunity, and they blew it. And it's going to be tough. And here's what I'll say, because we actually got a super chat in here from Jay Flo saying that the Sixers should tank for draft position. No, they're not going to tank. When there's a chance of Joel Embiid coming back, they're not going to try to miss the playoffs.
Yeah.
But what I will say is that pick that, because they can, this is something that we've mentioned on the show. I'm writing an article for tomorrow. But basically, in the summer, they can trade upwards of 5 first-round picks because you can take a player in that draft and then trade him, basically trade his rights. Well, that pick, that 2024 pick that we were all expecting to be, bottom 5 in the first round, late 20s, that might end up being a solid teens pick. Like, that will have more value in a trade now. I don't mean to say that offsets all of the other problems with Joel Embiid's injury. Don't get me wrong. At the very least, that pick might have some real legitimate trade value in the summer, but you're not going to tank. Like, that's just not any year where Joel Embiid has a chance of returning. They're not going to tank.
Plus, as Corey said in the chat, this draft is not where Victor Wembanyama, Brandon Miller, Scoot Henderson.
Even beyond that, not only is there not the top end talent, I think most people will tell you there's not a whole lot of depth either.
Right. So what are you tanking for, unless you're tanking to get that draft position too, as Derek talked about, package it with some of the others to go and get something else to help out with a player that already exists in the NBA. So I agree with you. No, you don't tank, especially when Joel Embiid has an opportunity to come back. The Sixers are now, as we talk, go ahead.
One thing, because I think some people are confused because the Sixers refuse to use tear or mention what kind of surgery he got. He got a meniscectomy. Meniscectomy? I don't actually know how to pronounce it because I don't know if I ever said it.
That's fine.
He got the partial, the torn portion of it removed.
Right.
It's not a full repair. Again, not officially said, but just talking to people, reading the timeline they're giving. That's the only explanation. Haven't received any pushback the number of times I've said it. So yes, he's not going to be out. Well, I'm not going to say that. He will be reevaluated in 4 weeks, and it's a truthful evaluation in 4 weeks. Not like them trying to hoodwink you or trick you. Like it's not like it is going to be a real legitimate reevaluation.
Did you see we had Furk in the chat?
I saw we have somebody named Furkan Korkmaz in the chat. Yeah.
He said, I heard my name. Thank you, Furkan Korkmaz.
Did we actually
imposter.
say Korkmaz?
No.
I was going to say, I don't think we've said his name.
Maybe someone in the chat did earlier, just because of the trade stuff. He's on the final year of his deal, $5 million that he's making this year. Sixers now 2.5 games back of the Milwaukee Bucks and the New York Knicks, who are tied for the 3rd seed at 33-18. And the Indiana Pacers are 2 games back of the Sixers. They occupy the 6th seed at this time and just 3 games ahead of the Miami Heat, who hold down the 7th seed right now at the start of the play-in. So, again, the Sixers have some work to do. 3-7 in their last 10, and it's not good. So, looking at, I guess it's time to kind of, first of all, tell people what happened earlier in the day. There were a few moves around the NBA that took place. One, we'll start with the Boston Celtics. The Boston Celtics, I didn't even think of this name, Derek.
Yeah.
And I'm disappointed in myself. Not disappointed in you guys because you did a lot of work.
I mean, you can be disappointed in me.
I'm disappointed in myself because
I'm disappointed in myself every day.
You got to do better than that. You do well.
You got to be a realistic self-evaluator.
I am too. I'm that way too. But yeah, I didn't see this name. And here's why. Because Steven Adams was on the roster at one point. And I didn't think they would do anything, even though Jaren Jackson plays a lot of the 5 for the Memphis Grizzlies. Xavier Tillman, who's a nice backup big, has had some really good moments in the NBA as a backup big, was traded from the Grizzlies to the Celtics, folks. If you did not hear, to the Celtics, and they trade for 2 future second-round picks.
One of them, I think, the 32nd pick in this year's draft.
And I wouldn't have minded it. Now, you could still look at the Drummond piece, the Kelly Olynyk name been mentioned also. But that one, I would not have minded had Daryl Morey pulled that one off to hold things down for the time being. And like I said, I was disappointed in myself that I didn't think about Xavier Tillman.
Yeah. And like, I think part of the thing is he's not a shooter, so there's no chance of playing him alongside of Embiid. But then again, it only cost 2nd-round picks. But also, then again, the pick that they gave up was worth, like I said, I think one of them is a 32nd pick. So the Sixers, I'm not sure they necessarily could have competed without giving up a first. You're not giving up a first for a backup center. I think that's going to be a good fit with the Celtics. Like I think he can switch, which again, when you take Porzingis out, they have a lot of other players on the perimeter, 1 through 4, who can switch. Just another guy you can throw in here.
Yep.
I think that'll be a good get for him. And they needed some depth as injury insurance as well. I think it's a good move. We do have Kyle checking in here from the Wells Fargo Center, who I'm not sure if you watched very much of that game. And even if you did, what really can you say? But how you doing, Kyle?
I could say it stunk out loud.
It did.
That's what I could say about that game. Also, Ricky Council looked pretty decent in
Go get him, Rick.
extended garbage time. So next time that Devon and I are watching garbage time, there'll be some even louder shouts of Rick and Ricky in the PHLY studios. So can hang our hats on that for damn sure.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Well, listen, man, as we talked about before you came in, just under 17 hours away from the trade deadline. And if it didn't really, as you said, stink out loud, it at least said something out loud of, man, they really have put us in a position where we look at things and say they need to get something done tomorrow. That was a tough watch.
Yeah, and you hate to quote tweet yourself in the middle of a game after you report a story, but I was like, man, what I reported, it sure seems like you can understand why they're after a certain archetype of player, right? Because even with an admittedly compromised Tyrese Maxey, dealing with an illness, has had the ankle thing, but Tyrese is just out there by himself seemingly at times in terms of the creative responsibilities. And the word that I have heard, I put a couple specific names on it earlier, but they have been after combo guards, right? And they want guys who can take some of the responsibility off of Tyrese, but also play off of him, right? Like that's the ideal scenario. You don't want a true point guard, but you also don't want just a strict off-ball shooting guard, any of that. And every offensive possession is a slog for this group right now. If they can't score in transition, it becomes really difficult for them to score, period. They're able to hang around for the whole first half of this game because, look, Golden State definitely missed a lot of shots and left some money on the table, but they were bought in, played good defense. I thought Jaden Springer was a big standout, but look, guys, if the offense is this bad, they are going nowhere fast, and they're going to struggle to beat basically any team in the league. So they need some help, and they're certainly calling on some pretty good to very good players, but based on what the asking prices are right now, not sure any of these deals are getting done.
Well, why don't we start off there? Because I don't want to talk about this godforsaken game. Let's just pretend it never happened. What is it that you reported on earlier in the, what was it, end of the first quarter, I believe, is when you pubbed?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so if you guys go to allphly.com, you'll be able to see that story. But I have heard that the Sixers have made some calls on Portland's Malcolm Brogdon. Obviously fits that archetype I was just talking about, is a guy who can be a quote-unquote floor general. I think it's a situation where when Tyrese would hit the bench, he'd be the guy with the ball in his hands setting up the offense. But alongside Tyrese, he's got some versatility, good catch and shoot, good off-ball player, has certainly had some great seasons the last 2 years, his two best outside shooting seasons ever last year and this year on decent, not great, but decent volume. I believe, 4 or 5 threes a game. So they called on him, and from what I've been told, there's skepticism Brogdon will move at all. So that's, turd in the punch bowl, number one. The other big one who you guys and I have talked about quite a bit is Bogdan Bogdanović in Atlanta. I think he's gettable. I think the Sixers are interested in him. But when I say he's gettable, I think that means you're paying a big premium to get him, like multiple first-round picks. And even then, you might still have to give up like a not similar role player, but at least like a decent role player in that package too. Maybe you say Springer is thrown in there as like the young player, interesting piece that goes the other way. But I don't think the Sixers are in the business of moving multiple first-round picks unless they are getting maybe not a star, but like a real legit guy back. So those were the two big ones. And then we continue to hear names like Buddy Hield. I think Indiana's asking price is too high right now, but that's one that I could see. Indiana's saying they want a first right now. The Sixers are not giving them a first. Maybe by 3:00 tomorrow, they meet in the middle and Buddy comes to Philly. And then the last piece, which I know Jake Fisher, among other reporters, have talked about quite a bit, they're going after big men. Right? They have Olynyk and Drummond are the ones that I know for sure. My understanding is they've gone after several other guys too. I can't put specific names to that I could report publicly yet, but they are absolutely in the market for a big. If they do not address that tomorrow, my suspicion is they will go buyout hunting at some point.
And as you say that, it's clear that, as we've talked about since the Embiid news, what are they going to do? Should they keep pushing forward to try to maintain that they're going to push for a top 6 remaining there in the Eastern Conference? And certainly if Embiid is able to come back, still of the belief that they can maybe do something and make some noise in the Eastern Conference. Based on your story and the names that they're looking at potentially, that means that they are still pushing forward with the belief that they can possibly make some noise to still going forward.
Yeah, look, I think they look at it as when the team has been whole, they've been great, and they have not been even close to whole, right? Like even can't set aside Joel Embiid, but if you set aside Joel Embiid, they're missing valuable guys in their rotation. And I will also add this. I meant to include this in my story because I feel like Derek asked me what's going on with DeAnthony Melton after every single game. That's one of our post-game rituals at this point. I know Nick Nurse said that the hope might be, hey, you get him in for a couple games, maybe 3 games before the break. I would not be surprised if he doesn't play at all. I think just reading the room at this point, I think they've been cautious enough as it is that I don't think they're taking any unnecessary risks with him. So I would not be surprised, based on a few conversations I've had, that if he sat through the All-Star break. That's not certain, but that shows you how dire things are, right? Like if you can't, he was the one that we said, yeah, maybe he's close. He might come back. He might help them. So they might be without him for another, 5 games, 6 games, whatever it is. And this is not a team that can afford to have basically anybody missing right now.
Yeah, there's 4 games left before the break. So to get him 3 before the break, he would pretty much have to come back Saturday. And that seems a little bit unlikely.
No.
Yeah.
When you looked at stuff tonight, just to kind of go back to the game real quick, Kyle, when you looked at, I asked Derek this earlier because we spoke about the Maxey piece. That's clear. Illness, he's struggling in general. They're throwing different defenses at him. And they have to figure that part out maybe with some reinforcements. But what has bothered you the most about their offense, excluding Maxey, that really stands out to you? We had a comment earlier from a viewer who mentioned how Embiid cleaned up so much of their mess, and we really see it now. But something that really stands out to you outside of Maxey that really has you scratching your head as you watch the offense?
Well, look, I think you can see how they've re-engineered the offense around Joel, where without Joel, you're then asking guys like Paul Reed and Mo Bamba to serve as hubs more than they should. Like a lot of the uptick in playmaking / just in the assist numbers for Joel is that it's a different system, right? It's guys cutting off of the big at the elbow. And frankly, Bamba and Reeds, like READS, Reeds,
Yeah.
are not quick enough to be able to take advantage of the cutters and what have you. And I know we've gotten pushback on criticizing Kelly Oubre lately.
It's been awful.
But he's been awful. And I will say, as much as we came in negative on him to start the year and then gave him his just due, I do think he's a symptom of the problem rather than like, oh, Kelly is causing all these problems, right? Like when Kelly is in a specialist role, he's been pretty good. When Kelly has been given lots of responsibility, you've seen the guy who put up 20 points a game on bad efficiency and the team was very bad around him. And like, that's the Kelly Oubre problem. The more you ask him to do, the more trouble you're going to get yourself in. I think you've seen that with, he didn't play tonight, but somebody like Marcus Morris, right? Like Marcus Morris, when Joel Embiid's on the floor and he can be a spot up shooter or a guy who just one dribble, attack the closeout, pull up mid range, he's a pretty good player. He's adding some value to the team on offense. When Marcus Morris is trying to do one-legged Dirk fadeaways and take fadeaway long twos, and they run the offense through him, that's a problem. And so everybody having to step up one or two roles above probably where they should be is a huge problem. And Tobias talked a little bit in the locker room, like he said, we have to find our new normal, right? Like we have to figure out what is our identity, what works for us. This is not the Joel show for a little bit. This is not a team built around his defensive talents and his ability to shoot them out of bad possessions and play make off the elbow. So it's just, there are a whole lot of things. I feel like this is Festivus right now, Devon. I'm just got all these problems with you people, and I'm going to let you know there's
That's
a whole lot wrong.
Yeah. Final one for me. We were talking about right as you came on. I don't know if you heard Celtics getting Xavier Tillman. Again, not the greatest big man or anything, but he's a big man. He can give you some minutes. He can rebound. Not necessarily a greatest scorer. Celtics just doing something good to help out with their depth and someone who has playoff experience. They're not going to ask too much of him. What did you make of that move from the Celtics?
I like it. I mean, look, Xavier Tillman, if you're asking him to be one of the most important guys on your team, as he was this season in Memphis, you're going to run into some problems there, right? Like that's not where you want to be. But Xavier Tillman as like your eighth or ninth man, your third big with it's basically just protection against Porzingis having to take games off, Al Horford being older, needing to manage his minutes. And I think he's a good, savvy defensive player that give you some versatility there, different matchups. And he's had some success against maybe not the Embiids of the world, but the thinner, more athletic bigs, I'd say. Like I know he's had some good performances against Anthony Davis, for example, is a guy that he's had some success against on defense. So the rich getting richer to some extent. I don't want to overstate the impact it's going to have. That team is still going to live and die on their top six. And right now, as it stands, they have the best top six in basketball. But there's not a whole lot for them to do, right? Like they've been, I don't want to call them a juggernaut. I wouldn't put them quite at that level, but they've been a great team, great regular season team. They have an elite top six. And if you can get a little bit better, you might as well do it. And I think, honestly, my big takeaway is that Brad Stevens has done a hell of a job since moving to the front office. Like, it's not a transition that everyone / many people can make. And the fact that he's been able to do it this seamlessly, granted with a lot of, assets and what have you at his disposal, I think he's done a great job to look at it pretty plainly and like gave up a fan favorite and Marcus Smart and still made the team better and is now still trimming around the edges. So, all credit to him as much as it makes the blood boil for every Philadelphian.
Last one from me, Kyle. Ties into a super chat we got, which Devon and I will discuss in a second. Over under 0.5 first round picks traded by the Sixers in the next 24 hours.
It's a good one because I think if the right deal presented itself, they're not opposed to it. And I didn't hear this personally, but I did see Jake Fisher saying they're trying to move potentially some later year swaps for more immediate firsts. And so they could come up with extra picks that they don't have now, maybe move those. I would guess under, though. I would say if moves are made tomorrow, more than likely it's second round picks plus expiring deals. That I think the smart money is on that. The writing is on the wall that based on what we heard from Nick Nurse pregame saying, hey, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a big deadline overall, like for the league, based on what we've heard about the Bulls, the Hawks, those kind of fringe playoff teams that they're not really aggressively selling from what we can tell. I don't
wild,
see.
But anyway,
it is wild, and that's a symptom of crappy ownership, crappy management, whatever. But based on all the tea leaves, I just think that all signs point to they're not going to overpay. They're not going to, maybe if DeJounte Murray, it was just like 1 first and a crappy contract, but the Hawks are still holding the line there. So I think it's 2nd-round picks, and we'll see what they get. But stay tuned, everybody. We will have a live show to sort through all that tomorrow.
2 hours worth. Come hang out with Kyle at Chicken or the Egg in Marlton, New Jersey.
Just me? You guys are abandoning me? Oh, shit. I didn't know that.
Rich will be there.
We've brought it up a couple times on the show, so we want to make sure to mention that Kyle will be there too.
Kyle will be there.
See you tomorrow, buddy.
The Chicken or the Egg, Marlton, New Jersey, 2 o'clock, 2 to 4 hour trade deadline special. And we hope to see you all there. AllPHLY.com is where you can find on Kyle's story that he dropped during the game about the Sixers inquiring about some help for Tyrese Maxey there on the floor. Kyle, go get some rest, man. We got 2 hours tomorrow. Got to bang that out.
Get home safe, boys. I will see you tomorrow afternoon.
You too, man. Thanks. Appreciate it. Again, allphly.com, not just for that story, but for his recap as well. Derek's going to have a story up tomorrow also ahead of the trade deadline. So make sure everybody goes to allphly.com.
So I referenced it with Kyle there. The super chat from Bill here. He says he asked us a few episodes ago, yes or no, do you think the Sixers will make a trade involving 1 first-round pick? Kyle said most likely not. Not most likely, but Kyle said if he had to guess, no. I agree with him.
Yeah.
I think Daryl Morey looks at these picks as his one way to add a difference maker to this Embiid Maxey core. And I think he looks at who is out there, doesn't see a difference maker, probably looks at people like Bogdanovich or even Caruso as not worth the high cost, not being enough of an upgrade for the high cost of acquisition, and specifically enough of an upgrade to take them out of the running of trying to go star or star adjacent hunting. And I think he is going to be stubborn about this. I think he probably thinks the difference between what he can get as an upgrade with the 2nd-round picks versus what he can get an upgrade by bundling 1st-round picks is not high enough to take away that opportunity in the summer. And I think it's going to piss off a lot of fans.
Yes, it really would. Because looking at, as you talk about difference makers, and Daryl Morey not seeing that right now, until he finds out what that is in the summer, because so many of the names that we thought were difference makers or are difference makers, but now are off the table, seemingly, of course, with Siakam and OG Anunoby. Kawhi Leonard is for sure a difference maker. Paul George, they're playing too well. Why would he leave that? We don't know what the rest of the season is going to look like once they get to the playoffs, but that's a difference maker. Where's the difference maker in terms of free agency? Now, you can still do that via trade, but man, to have these Sixer fans sitting there waiting to find out who that is by the NBA draft and then free agency, it's going to be a lot of upset fans if nothing happens, especially when Sixer fans, who are rational, with a lot of their thinking, see the other teams doing it, Derek, and then the return for it to get said player, Bogdanovich, let's just use that as an example, Sixer fans are not going to be happy. They're going to be heated.
Yeah.
Heated. Yeah. Well, we'll get a lot of that tomorrow.
We will get a lot
We still have some super chats we got to run through.
Chats, yep.
All right, let's go to Joe Sox, super chat. What about the rumors of the Sixers possibly making 3 moves by the deadline tomorrow? Brian Windhorst.
He said 1 to 3.
1 to 3.
Yeah.
1 to 3 is what he said.
Well, and then our PHLY Sixers account reported that they expect anywhere from 0 to 5.
That's a good range.
Yeah.
It's a very good range.
Feel pretty confident. I'm not sure who sent that one, but I feel pretty confident.
All right. So stay tuned, of course, Joe, for that.
It's
hard to predict that.
Yeah. Well, and I think Daryl's certainly making calls. I think right now, and Daryl's signaling, the asking price is too high. Asking price got to come down. And other teams are signaling, we know what we have and we value our guys and you got to meet us at our price. And then by 3 o'clock tomorrow, both sides actually have to make a freaking decision. And for months and months and months, it's been posturing and posturing, posturing. By tomorrow, pencils down, time's up. You have to make a decision. We'll see which side budges. I think there's a chance they make a deal. I'm just not sure I see a first-round pick being included. And to Brian's credit, he said 1 to 3. If they make a deal, that satisfies that.
Interesting to see what they might get for a second-round pick or multiple second-round picks. Jay Shave says, if they can't realistically win it all this year, do you think they should try to trade Tobias for assets instead of letting him walk for nothing? Thank you, Jay Shade.
If it's like Bojan and an asset, sure. But if it's just assets, like Daryl Morey's not going to give Tobias. First of all, you're not getting an asset for Tobias. Like Detroit's the only one because they've been rumored to want to pursue him as a free agent. That's the only option. And I can't imagine them giving up a high enough asset where Daryl would say like, you know what? We were going to use him for the playoff run, but this is a good enough asset. I just don't think that's realistically likely in the cards. And I don't think Daryl agrees that they can't realistically win this year. So I'd be surprised.
All right, folks, we appreciate everybody hanging out with us. Tough one again. It's been a tough go for the Sixers without Joel Embiid, the illness running through the locker room. Tyrese Maxey seeing some different defenses that really has them thinking out there on the floor a lot. And they have not resulted in many wins since. They've lost 7 of their last 8. They're 30-20. They're 5th in the Eastern Conference standings. They need to get things together. Not only are we looking at the trade deadline as something that they just simply need to help this roster, boy, as the guys talked about with the injuries and the illness, this All-Star break cannot come at a better time for this basketball team.
And for my mental sanity,
and
too.
for Derek's mental sanity as well. And he needs that.
I do.
He does need that to be
sharp. It's been a long 2 weeks, man. It's been a long 2 weeks.
It has. Look how it's just up here. Like, all right, yeah, they just adjust here, make some little things, some tweaks. Now it's like, boom, all the way down here. And that's where we are.
I mean, legitimately, right before Joel Embiid got injured, Kyle was on this show saying if they went into the series against the Milwaukee Bucks, he wasn't too worried about that series. Now all of a sudden we're like, they have one person who can dribble and he's sick and can barely play. Please send help. And neither side is wrong. And folks, that's why he was the MVP 2 years in a row, or would have been if he didn't get hurt.
How about that? Well, we look forward to seeing you all tomorrow at the Chicken or the Egg, Marlton, New Jersey. Again, please, if you're able to, maybe you work from home, you get off early tomorrow, you want to start your weekend, and you want to come hang out with us. We're going to have some wings. We're going to have some drinks there. We're going to talk a lot of basketball. We have our 5-man team, our 5-person team with us as Rich, Kyle, Derek, me, Bree will all be there to talk about the trade deadline, not just the Sixers, but whatever else happens around the association. So we hope to see you there. We'll have some wings. We'll see who can handle the hot wings and all that stuff. Make sure you just bring the tissues, right? Your nose starts running from the heat. You can take it, but you got to wipe your nose. I'm not the only one that's been there. You guys have been there too. You got to wipe the nose sometimes when you have that really hot wing. So we'll do that.
I'm a wuss, man. I am a complete wuss when it comes to hot food.
No, you're not. All right. Our guy, Al, 2-minute warning says,
what up, Al?
I'm trying to make it there tomorrow. What up, Al? We say that live tomorrow if Al's able to make it.
Well, got to bring Al on the show. Say, what up, Al, on the show.
Al can just jump on camera and say what up.
We'll give him a mic.
To everybody.
We got 2 hours, man. We'll give a mic to everyone.
Everybody. The boy,
I'm
RJ.
mostly kidding.
Cannoli.
I don't know. We'll see.
Vic. I saw our good friend Barb is in there.
We got to make sure Jay Shave, Bill, and Joe Sox because of the super chats.
What up, Joe Sox?
We appreciate you all. There was another one too. Jay Flo. Appreciate you.
We appreciate everybody. Oh, yeah. Clizzy Moto. Who else we have in here?
We got a couple more second round exit fan, which that name just cuts too deep. Please change that by the next one. Marty Bones, Ryan,
Marty Bones,
Alex,
what up?
Corey, Mateus, Nick, Tim, front running fan base, which again, not sure I love the name, but I appreciate you hopping on.
Front running with Kansas City on Sunday, I'll tell you that.
Brian Knight, Cannoli.
What up, B?
Jay the Jungle.
Jay.
We said Joseph. Furkan Korkmaz.
What up, Furk? Was this the last time we see in a uniform, Furk? Yeah. I don't know. We'll find out.
If he gets his wish.
Yeah.
Furious, Kevin Schmick. Did the Phillies win? Not yet.
Not
Coming
yet.
soon. But
spring
there
training.
is a spring training trip. Go to allphly.com/events. Check that one out.
That's right.
Let's see. What else do we have?
Who else do we have there?
Remo, Gracie, Vic, Dan B. A couple more. I think that's all I have written down here. Appreciate each and every one of you. X-Man. X-Man is in there too. I see him in the chat. Which X-Man though?
I don't know.
Oh.
It's a good question. Which
Let
X-Man?
us know, X-Man. Which one?
Let us know tomorrow.
Which one
on
you're
the
riding
show.
with
We'll
here?
be with you for 2 hours. Whether you're with us live from the Chicken or the Egg, or you're watching at work or at home, we always appreciate it. Tonight, hanging out with us after a tough loss. We'll talk to you tomorrow, 2:00. Thank you to Derek, Kyle, Bree,
Ding!
all of you. Make sure you like
Need a
and
bell.
subscribe, and you get that
Vaughn, where's your bell?
notification. You hit the bell. Well, Al already has it there in the chat. Ding, as you said, they stole our bell. We can't find it. And we have to have an investigation in the PHLY's offices here because we can't find the bell. Vince, where's our bell? Let us know. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 2 o'clock right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast trade deadline special. See you then.
We all silly like the mayor.